This led him to believe he had just witnessed the absolute pinnacle of a Dark Knight's abilities. Time itself seemed to stop, making him wonder if he'd ascended to an even higher plane of existence as he fought to recover from the blow. He realized with a jolt that he had been utterly blindsided, a realization that caused him to unleash an even greater torrent of dark power. Convinced of his own superiority, he vowed to convert every last fragment of his darkness into raw, physical power. With this newfound strength fueling him, he surged forward with a look of intense focus, his eyes locked on his target. He then unleashed a furious barrage of attacks on his friend, who struggled desperately to fend off the relentless assault. Just then, the blonde-haired boy watching from the sidelines smiled, deftly caught his friend's attacking arm, and delivered a powerful kick to his stomach. But a wave of intense dark magic left him bewildered, his mind reeling as he tried to understand what was happening. It was then he understood he was fighting a mere projection. In that same instant, Lime appeared silently behind Arcadia. As he spun around in shock, Lime met him with a devastatingly powerful and well-timed strike. The impact hurled him across the arena, slamming him violently against the wall and forcing a scream of agony from his lips. He collapsed to his knees and then fell completely to the ground, just as the judge's voice echoed, declaring Lime the Goblin as the victor. The protagonist began to walk through the settling dust, his form slowly emerging as he approached his defeated opponent. As he stood over his fallen friend, he made it clear that his growth had been truly magnificent to behold. Later, the award ceremony for the Magic tournament was held, presided over by the Academy's Dean Eddie and a visibly furious Melaine. They offered their congratulations to the protagonist, who simply laughed and offered his thanks in return. Wesker presented a gleaming trophy, asking Lime to accept it as the definitive proof of his victory. He then announced that Master Duel himself would bestow the true prize, a magical treasure, upon the champion. The protagonist simply replied that he understood, thinking to himself that his ultimate goal was drawing ever closer. Yet, as he turned to depart, the old man stopped him, his expression turning serious as he asked the protagonist who he truly was. Baffled by the cryptic question, he presses for clarity, only for the old man to reveal that merely 1 week after his arrival, he had effortlessly dismantled the Academy's most formidable champions, some of whom fell even outside the bounds of the official tournament. The professor averts his gaze, his features tight with lingering fury, convinced his entire scheme had unraveled because of one seemingly insignificant boy. The old man's voice remains steady as he continues, explaining that an anomaly who defies all established logic is, by its very nature, a paradox. With a knowing look, he asserts that the boy must already grasp this truth, revealing that the tournament was specifically engineered as a crucible to test his limits. A wave of disbelief washes over both Edward and Melaine, who are stunned that the elder is laying bare the entire conspiracy before the young prodigy. Meanwhile, the oblivious crowd murmurs excitedly amongst themselves, still buzzing about the official winner of the Grand Magic Tournament. Wesker then declares his solemn intent to enact the necessary measures against every individual who had a hand in this manipulative plot. With a heavy heart, he admits that this judgment includes himself, and then, in a gesture of profound respect, he bows deeply before the protagonist. He humbly asks for the chance to offer his sincerest apologies, confessing his part in the conspiracy and expressing the depths of his true regret. Liam gently implores the old man to raise his head, stating with humility that he is just another student who took part in the competition. Internally, however, he marvels at the revelation, thinking to himself that the existence of well-intentioned demons was a concept he never could have imagined. It becomes chillingly clear that the very fabric of this reality is twisting and diverging ever further from the game he once knew so intimately. The old man, still poised, then makes a simple request, asking him to share just one final thought. He asks what the Academy truly lacks. After a moment of quiet contemplation, Liam answers that the institution's selection process must be founded on impartiality. He acknowledges, however, that among the entrenched aristocracy of the Academy, such a radical idea is met with fierce resistance. He recounts the bitter prejudice he faced, the constant discrimination for being a goblin, a creature deemed to be of a lower order. He adds that his dear friend Arcadia, a kobold, endured the very same systemic bigotry. Because of this, he concludes, the Academy's deepest flaw lies in its prejudice, though he is careful to emphasize that the entire system is not without merit. He firmly believes that a student's innate abilities should be the sole priority, for as he wisely notes, corrupt instructors will inevitably forge corrupt students. Wesker turns, his decision made. I understand completely, he states, his voice leaving no room for argument. In that case, I will begin by dismissing Professor Eddie and Operations Director Melaine. A full-scale reform starts now. A faint smile touches the protagonist's lips. He admires the old man's swift and decisive action. Meanwhile, Eddie and Melaine are reeling, the shock of their termination hitting them like a physical blow. Later, in a quieter part of the academy, Liam is speaking with his friend, Arcadia, who offers a heartfelt congratulations. "Thanks," Liam says warmly, "and congratulations to you for securing second place." Arcadia seems a bit embarrassed but laughs, returning the thanks. Then, while stretching out his weary muscles, Arcadia admits, "I was genuinely surprised. Fighting with every ounce of my strength could be that much fun." The protagonist nods in agreement. "It was. And by the way, there's something I wanted to ask you." Arcadia's eyes light up with pure excitement. "What is it?" he asks, his loyalty shining through. "I'll do anything you ask." Liam is slightly taken aback by his friend's intense devotion. "Do you really mean that?" he asks, needing to be sure. He then delivers the news. "I have to leave the academy." The blonde-haired boy is intrigued and confused. "But, didn't you just enroll?" "I did," the protagonist confirms. "But this is something that I am compelled to do. I promise I will return someday," he vows. "And until that day comes, I need to know if you will be my ally." Arcadia is slightly bewildered by the gravity of the question but replies, "That's obvious." Liam then presses him. "Will you still say that, even if it means making the Demon Lord's army your enemy?" The question hangs in the air, leaving Arcadia utterly startled. He struggles to comprehend the sudden shift. Why would you bring up a topic like that so unexpectedly? Liam's expression becomes intensely serious, his gaze unwavering. "Please, just promise me." The blonde boy is visibly shaken by the request. But then, a smile breaks through his confusion. Extending a hand, he says, "It's okay, I promise. No matter what happens, I will always stand by your side." Liam is filled with gratitude, shaking his friend's hand. "Thank you. I'm counting on you." Shifting gears, he then offers some insight into his friend's combat style. "Arcadia, you fight with great honesty. To grow even stronger, try facing off against more cunning adversaries," he advises. Arcadia seems a bit uncertain about the suggestion, but he simply nods, assuring him that he understands and will hold the fort while Asher is gone. With that settled, the protagonist turns and begins to walk away. Offering a final farewell to his friend, Arcadia smiles warmly and wishes him the best of luck. As Asher reaches the academy's grand entrance, he is taken aback by an ambush of affection. His younger sisters rush forward, enveloping him in a hug and showering him with congratulations for his victory. The small fairy observes the heartwarming scene from a distance, a serene and beautiful smile gracing Lily's face. She proudly declares her intention to boast about his triumph to everyone in their village, while Mew gently tugs on the protagonist's clothes to get his attention. She then asks with hopeful eyes if he could possibly stay with them in the village, at least for a short while. He lets out a warm laugh, thanking them for their heartfelt support before agreeing. Unseen by the group, Letty watches them from the shadows. She silently wonders who those girls could be, and what class they might belong to. Before inwardly scolding herself for hiding, she knows all she really needs to do is call out to him, just as she always has. A moment later, a system notification commands the protagonist's focus. It informs him of the successful completion of the Level 4 Awakening mission, announcing that the number of dark magic abilities available to him has been expanded and that the skill Rapid Shift has been unlocked. Sometime later, upon reaching the secret Goblin village, Asher lowers his hood, reflecting on how, despite only a week having passed since he left, it feels as if he has been away for an entire age. His reverie is broken when the villagers finally notice his presence. An eruption of cheers and joyous shouts fills the air, with villagers hailing the protagonist as their messiah as they rush to alert everyone else. Word of his return spreads like wildfire, and soon, all the children of the village have gathered around him in a tight, excited circle. They chatter about his strange and unfamiliar attire. Suddenly, a familiar presence draws his attention, and he turns his head. He sees the village elder watching him from afar. The old man simply gestures with a sweep of his hand, a silent invitation for the protagonist to see what has changed since his departure. The village is prospering, its people feeling truly free for the first time. The elder's proud gaze makes it clear that all of this progress is thanks to him. Asher reflects on this, thinking that it seems the advice he shared before his departure proved to be exceptionally useful. His mind quickly flashes back to a crucial conversation he had with the elder, where he explained that the village land, though fertile, was barren without water, making it impossible for crops to flourish. This grim reality made sustaining the population a constant struggle, a fact he posed to the elder, seeking his agreement. The old man acknowledged the painful truth, his voice heavy with resignation, but explained that their hands were tied. He revealed this desolate place was the only sanctuary they had. their one refuge from the prying eyes of hostile tribes. With no other means to survive, their fate was sealed. The elder then added that there was no simple solution to their plight. The land, he confessed, had been deliberately poisoned by an unknown enemy. A revelation that prompted Liam to ask, "Are you certain?" "I am," the elder confirmed, explaining that a malevolent contamination spell had been woven into the very earth beneath their feet. It was a curse that enveloped the entire village, and with a sliver of hope, the old man asked if Liam could perceive it. Liam's gaze pierced the unseen, affirming that he could, and noting that the dark magic was cleverly concealed from ordinary goblins. However, he declared with conviction, "If we eliminate this corruption, the land's vitality will return, and your village will prosper again." A wave of shock and disbelief washed over the elder. "How?" he whispered. "How could such a thing even be possible?" A confident smile touched Liam's lips. "It's simple," he stated coolly. "We will shatter it with overwhelming force." He then strode to the heart of the village, taking his stand before the sinister, glowing runes of the Contamination magic circle. He deduced that this intricate circle was the very nexus, the core that fed and maintained the suffocating contamination spell. He recalled from his past knowledge that for mere goblins, detecting a curse of this complexity would have been utterly impossible. As his blade hissed from its sheath, the cold realization dawned upon him. This was a calculated effort to methodically wipe out the goblin population. He began a swift analysis of the arcane circle, his mind absorbing and memorizing the intricate patterns of the hostile spell. Without a moment's hesitation, he unleashed a torrent of power, his attack striking the magic circle with thunderous impact. The curse shattered into a million fading embers. Liam's resolve hardened. This was just another name on a long list of foes, enemies that would need to be utterly eliminated. He turned to the elder, his voice calm and steady. "You will not have to worry any longer. Soon, pure water would well up from the earth, promising a return to bountiful harvests for the village." Lily and Mew rushed to his side, their eyes bright with hope, asking if he would honor them by tasting a meal they had prepared themselves now that he had returned. The village children, overhearing the offer, buzzed with excitement, their cheerful shouts echoing their desire to share in the special meal. A warm laugh escaped Liam as he assured them he would be delighted to, once his dear sisters had finished their culinary masterpiece. And so, Liam mused to himself, he savored this fragile, fleeting moment of pure tranquility. The meal crafted by his sisters and Mew was nothing short of divine, and its warmth seemed to reignite the cheerful spirit of the villagers. Laughter and smiles had finally returned to their faces, and he knew in his heart that their joy would be absolute. If only their guardian, the goblin goddess, could have witnessed this beautiful recovery at that very moment. The next morning, as sunlight streamed in, the girls opened the door, their voices a gentle chorus of good morning. Liam met their greeting with a warm, appreciative smile. Rising to his feet, he announced softly that it was time for him to depart. Lily, her expression tinged with concern, asked if his preparations were truly complete. He reassured her, explaining that he'd had a profoundly restful night, thanks entirely to the soothing herbal tea they had brewed for him after dinner. Lily vowed she would always be there to support him, as Mew shyly stepped forward, holding out a small object and asking Liam if he would accept a token from them. As he took the delicate necklace from her hands, Mew explained softly that she and Lily had crafted it together. Lily added that it was a charm for good fortune, woven with their hopes that their brother would emerge victorious from every battle. Liam fastened it around his neck, admiring the beautiful craftsmanship. He thanked his sisters from the bottom of his heart, and their laughter was a sweet melody as they simply asked him to stay safe for their sake. With a final, lingering farewell, they urged him to take care and to promise he would return to them soon. Just then, the goblin fairy materialized, her voice grave. "The final confrontation is upon you," she warned. "Do not forget, the tyrant King Dole is an adversary of immense power." Liam's expression was calm as he acknowledged her warning, telling her not to worry. "I have a plan," he stated with quiet certainty. With a look of unwavering confidence, he elaborated, "I have committed his every move, every tactic, to memory. There is no possibility of my defeat." The fairy regarded him with a puzzled expression, admitting that something about his absolute certainty had been troubling her for quite some time. She then questions if that woman failed to grant him the gift of foresight or clairvoyance, wondering how, even without it, he seems to know everything. Drawing closer, the fairy asks with wide-eyed curiosity if he is truly what he appears to be, a mere goblin. He simply chuckles, reassuring the little creature that he is nothing more than an ordinary goblin. Meanwhile, across the desolate expanse of the demon continent, within the formidable fortress of Duel's domain, a figure sits upon a throne. Enthroned and amused, he scoffs at the news, questioning if a mere goblin, a creature from a lowly, near-extinct race, truly intends to face him. The thought that a species on the brink of vanishing from existence is daring to approach him is, he admits, genuinely fascinating. Liam then recalls a crucial detail he nearly overlooked. Noting that their journey to Duel's castle presents a perfect opportunity, he suggests they use his newly acquired fast travel skill, a concept that leaves the little fairy utterly bewildered. However, our protagonist simply tells her not to fret and to tuck herself safely into his pocket for the ride. Calling upon his system, he confidently states that their arrival will be instantaneous, as quick as the blink of an eye. With those words, they vanish and reappear elsewhere, materializing inside the seer dormitory, within our protagonist's private room. The fairy, now back on solid ground, asks if this was the skill he spoke of, admitting she's almost past the point of being surprised by his abilities. Liam laughs to himself, reflecting that the ability to instantly travel to a previously visited location is a common feature for players in the game. He operates under the assumption that the world he now inhabits functions under the very same principles. He then explains that all their preparations are complete, the only missing piece was the invitation he needed to acquire. An invitation he conveniently secured through his victory in the Magic tournament. His expression hardens as he declares with grim determination that the time for the final, decisive confrontation has arrived. Later, positioned at the imposing gate of Duel's castle, a lone guard stands his watch when a sudden movement catches his eye. As the protagonist steadily approaches, the guard immediately challenges the figure, demanding to know who dares come near. He barks a warning, declaring that inferior monsters like the protagonist are not welcome, and commands Liam to turn back at once. Presenting the invitation, Liam questioned if his departure was truly necessary. Even as he held it, the guard meticulously examined the document, a wave of embarrassment washing over him. He began to apologize profusely to Liam for his conduct, granting him permission to enter the main hall of Duel Castle. Liam surveyed his surroundings, remarking that such an imposing atmosphere was only to be expected from the fortress of one of the 7 renowned commanders of the Demon Lord's army. However, the fairy, observing her master, noted that he didn't appear the least bit intimidated. Liam countered that he wouldn't go that far, admitting that a profound sense of unease was setting in. The thought of his impending actions made his nerves fray, and just then, a sudden sound snapped his attention, causing him to turn. A servant appeared, thanking Liam for his patience before gesturing towards a doorway and inviting him to proceed. Liam's hand tightened into a fist. The moment of truth had arrived. He sternly warned the fairy to remain in his pocket, regardless of what was to unfold. She promptly zipped into his pocket, assuring him there was no need to ask after all. She was acutely aware she wasn't built for combat. With that final preparation, Liam strode towards the dueling grounds. Meanwhile, beyond the castle walls, the guard was languishing in boredom when a figure approached the gates, politely requesting entry. Puzzled, the guard inquired about the person's business. The stranger asked if a student had recently passed through these gates. They explained that if this were the case, it appeared the student had neglected to leave an offering for Master Dole. The stranger expressed a desire to return it immediately, a request that piqued the guard's curiosity. After a moment's consideration, he granted the person entry. A subtle smile graced the stranger's lips. They thanked the guard for his kindness and understanding. Back within the throne room of Duel Castle, Liam advanced with caution, his mind drifting back to a time when a particular in-game event unfolded. A momentous battle that had taken place in this very hall. Judging by his current surroundings, everything was just as he remembered. The vast chamber had the unmistakable feel of a final boss arena. He stopped, his heart pounding, realizing he was finally face-to-face with Duel, the infamous Cruel King, one of the 7 most powerful figures in the Demon Lord's entire army. Duel's voice boomed, expressing his approval of Liam's arrival. Liam vividly recalled fighting this king countless times within the game, yet, he knew with absolute certainty that standing before the real entity was a completely different ordeal. He bowed deeply, humbly thanking the king for the invitation. He presented himself as Liam, a first-year student enrolled at the Dark Magic Academy. Duel dismissed the gesture, stating there was no need for such rigid formality and that he should speak his mind without reservation. The king added that he had reviewed the Magic tournament records, his gaze sharpening as he asked Liam to confirm a specific detail. Was he truly a descendant of the low-class Goblin tribe, a race teetering on the very edge of extinction? Liam affirmed that he was. Hearing this, Duel nodded slowly, a look of understanding on his face. He then inquired how the protagonist had cultivated his skills to such a level. Liam simply stated that he had been training relentlessly every day. This training, he added, took place in a location hidden from everyone. Duel's eyes narrowed. Are you then self-taught? And your dark manipulation technique, the king continued. Did you also master that entirely on your own? Liam confirmed that he had. A tense silence hung between them as they locked eyes. After a moment, Duel finally spoke, a slow smile gracing his lips. Very well, he declared that, with a talent as remarkable as Liam among their ranks, the Demon Lord's army was destined for a brilliant future. Raising a single finger, he commanded the protagonist to continue his diligent work with unwavering dedication. Then, fulfilling his promise, Duel announced it was time for his reward, a magical treasure of Liam's own choosing. Liam's mind raced through the legendary options. The Sword of Condemnation, Erendite, the Madness Shield of the Demon Wall, and the Evil Harness forged from the chains of Hades. He recognized all of them as legendary tier items, artifacts of immense power. This was exactly the kind of powerful equipment he had been searching for. The monumental choice left him momentarily stunned, but his resolve quickly hardened. He made his decision and declared, "I will choose the Sword of Condemnation." Arundite, Duel affirmed. An excellent choice. With a flicker of power, the king summons a sword into existence, holding the magnificent blade in his hand. He commands Lime to approach and take it, prompting the young man to move forward with slow, deliberate steps. But just as Lime reaches for the sword, King Deo speaks, mentioning the grand pillars that line the path to his throne. He points out that they are inlaid with a special kind of gemstone, a sudden and bizarre comment that leaves Lime utterly confused. The cruel king clarifies that the pillars function as an infallible loyalty test for every one of his subjects. If any soul bearing hostile intent dares to pass between them, the gems will burn with a furious red glow, a revelation that sends a chill down Lime's spine. In that instant, Deo snatches the sword back, leveling it at Lime, and unleashing a ferocious attack with blinding speed. A wave of alarm washes over Lime, knowing that at such an impossibly close range, he cannot hope to fully evade the blow. The strike lands, forcing him into a desperate leap backward. Lime collapses to a knee, his body wounded, and his mind seething with frustration. He inwardly curses himself. Of all the things to miscalculate, it was the depths of the cruel king's suffocating paranoia. Deo remarks that he is surprised Lime could dodge even that much, conceding that the boy truly possesses immense potential. His expression then darkens as he declares that it is precisely because of that potential that he must be extinguished, here and now. With a roar, he summons his vassals, and it isn't long before countless pairs of bloodthirsty eyes begin to ignite within the shadows of the hall. From the periphery of the throne room, the grotesque shapes of several demonic creatures slither into the light. They stand before Lime, a monstrous congregation hemming him in, and he despises the suffocating trap he has walked into. Seeing him completely surrounded, Deo erupts in a fit of laughter, making it absolutely clear what is to come. He taunts that even if Lime were to cry and plead for mercy, it would make no difference whatsoever. In his view, traitors deserve a punishment far more agonizing than death. In response, Lime laughs, telling the cruel king he has gravely misunderstood the situation. He explains that when he said, "It ends here," he meant that he could no longer afford to conceal his true purpose. "So allow me to begin again," Lime says, his voice steady. "Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am here to take your head." His expression hardens as he makes a solemn vow to vanquish the king and seize this domain as his own. Dravus scoffs, questioning if the insolent whelp truly means his words. Without a flicker of hesitation, the protagonist's response is a resolute, "Yes." A cold laugh then escapes his lips, and he adds with chilling amusement that he might consider mercy, but only if the king wept and pleaded for it. The cruel king's eyes widen with a gleam of savage delight, his voice booming as he roars his intention to annihilate him on the spot. Liam thinks to himself that the long-awaited confrontation has finally arrived, just as Dravus unleashes a thunderous cry. He commands his legion of vassals to erase the protagonist from existence, and in an instant, the monstrous horde surges forward. This forces Liam into a desperate dance, leaping and weaving through the onslaught as he urgently calls upon his fairy for immediate healing. She responds instantly, agreeing to help but warning that a complete restoration is impossible under the circumstances. Liam confirms he understands, acutely aware that the cruel king's blade inflicts a curse that actively blocks all healing magic. Vaulting to the peak of a stone pillar, Liam's mind races, recalling the sheer, overwhelming power Dravus possessed in the original game. He remembers how it took an entire raid of players to challenge him, a testament to why he should have been a solitary, formidable boss. Yet, this chamber swarms with lesser creatures. A wry smile touches Liam's lips as he begins to gather his arcane energy. He muses internally that this is just one more stark deviation from the world he once knew only as a game. As he unleashes a torrent of power, the grim thought crosses his mind that the challenge, the very difficulty of this reality, is escalating relentlessly. Creatures scrambling up the pillar are blasted away, plummeting to the ground below, but amidst the chaos, Liam's eyes catch something unexpected. He realizes with a start that his own immense power has fractured the very platform supporting the pillar he stands upon. With no time to spare, he vaults towards another pillar, only for a winged beast to intercept him mid-air, striking with blinding speed. The creature finds its claws swiping through empty air, surprised to see its target has already vanished, landing gracefully on a different perch. The reprieve is short-lived as several more aerial pursuers close in, forcing him to invoke his shadow magic, the Black Worm. A tendril of pure darkness erupts, coiling around the leg of a winged monster, and with every ounce of his strength, Liam yanks it from the sky. He seizes a creature, spinning it into a deadly whirlwind that obliterates the entire approaching horde. Then, with a final, brutal acceleration, he hurls his living weapon, shattering it violently against the far wall. Without a moment's hesitation, Liam unleashes his dark explosion magic, engulfing every monster on the ground in a devastating blast. Dahl seethes at the effortless defeat of his vassals, but Liam merely laughs, taunting the cruel king to send in the next wave. For a time, the battle continues with our protagonist launching relentless attacks on Dahl's creatures from his aerial advantage, but he fails to notice a fallen monster stirring behind him until it lurches to its feet and charges with murderous intent. Liam's instincts scream a warning just in time. He pivots, cutting the creature down with a single, decisive blow. "I'm counting on it," Dahl roars back, his patience exhausted. "Just do us all a favor and die already." An ambush was already in place on the next pillar, but Liam counters with his dark signal bomb magic. He masterfully uses the explosion's concussive force to propel himself across the vast chasm, streaking through the air. Mid-flight, he spots another strategic pillar, landing gracefully before immediately springing toward the next one. Seeing the relentless pursuit of the monsters, he's forced to leap to yet another precarious perch. Dahl sneers, wondering aloud how long the protagonist can keep running, just as a colossal creature begins its attack. Yet Liam manages to intercept the massive beast just in time, while simultaneously parrying another lunging creature. The strain of the fight intensifies the pain from his earlier wound, and the heavy weight of exhaustion begins to set in. Dahl laughs sadistically, asking what's wrong and sneering that our hero still has a very long way to go. Liam offers a faint smile, agreeing that the cruel king is right, all while knowing his own time may be running out. The duelist retorts with certainty, his voice laced with venom as he commands the protagonist to perish. At his command, an even greater number of creatures swarms him, but Liam knows his frantic leaps from pillar to pillar served a greater purpose. It was all part of a plan. He announces that the intricate arrangements for his grand-scale spell are now complete. With the time for pleasantries over, he decides to get serious, unleashing his true power. A surge of energy arcs between the pillars, instantly vaporizing the grotesque monsters in its path. The energy meticulously traces a deliberate path, culminating in the formation of a glowing, arcane pentagram. Standing within the symbol, Liam finally unleashes his level 300 dark magic, Goblin Summoning. He begins an ancient chant, speaking of a path of light. A path, he recites, that can only be found within the deepest shadows. And through this profound revelation, the guide must now manifest its true power. He draws a deep breath, and his voice booms across the battlefield. He calls forth the Goblin King General, and a wave of primal fear washes over the surrounding monsters, causing them to falter. From the heart of the magical circle, a colossal figure begins to materialize, piece by agonizing piece, until it stands fully revealed in all its terrible glory. The Goblin King General's voice echoes with ancient power, remarking that it has been centuries since he last walked this world. Drexel, witnessing this overwhelming presence, can only stare in disbelief, demanding to know what manner of being he has summoned. He questions if his opponent truly summoned just a single goblin, before roaring an order for his own vassals to charge immediately. Liam merely scoffs, instructing his general to demonstrate his true might. In response, the Goblin King raises his staff, issuing a silent, potent command. A blinding light erupts from the staff, overwhelming the enemy's senses. In the aftermath, countless new creatures begin to materialize from the shadows. They rapidly form a vast, dark army, leaving Drexel utterly stunned and questioning the very nature of what he just witnessed. The creature Liam had summoned had, impossibly, cast a mass summoning spell of its very own. Liam turns to his foe, a smirk playing on his lips, and rhetorically asks if the cruel king hadn't just challenged him to a battle of numbers. He then declares with chilling confidence that when it comes to the art of overwhelming force, the goblins are, and always will be, at the absolute pinnacle. With that final word, the war ignites as the cruel king's vassals surge forward mercilessly. The Goblin King's legion meets them head-on, and in mere moments, the entire battlefield descends into a maelstrom of brutal chaos. The goblin archers knock their arrows in unison, unleashing a deadly volley at the cruel king's airborne monstrosities. The terrestrial creatures prove just as formidable, advancing without pause and methodically dismantling the king's vassals. One by one, the vassals begin to fade from existence, and a storm of fury brews within Dole as he witnesses his forces being utterly annihilated. With the battlefield now cleared, the Goblin King, visibly pleased with the result of his summons, turns to his spectral army. He commends his allies for their excellent work before releasing them, and himself, from the mortal plane. In the aftermath, Ethan approaches the cruel king, his expression radiating confidence, and asks if he's prepared for the second act. Dole roars, cursing the hero's name and vowing that the very concept of mercy is now off the table. He rises to his feet, and with each step forward, his dreadful aura floods the battlefield, pressing down with immense weight. He declares that never before has he suffered such humiliation, and for that insult, the protagonist will pay a terrible price. Ethan simply laughs, retorting that retreat has never been a part of his vocabulary. With a guttural shout, Dole unleashes his overwhelming power, and Ethan immediately recognizes that his opponent has released the full measure of his darkness. The air grows heavy, the very gravity around them warping under the strain of such malevolent energy. In response, Ethan resolves that he too will hold nothing back, allowing his own dark power to surge forth. But in that critical moment, his old wound tears open again, a fact not missed by the tiny, frantic fairy at his side. She cries out in alarm for her master, reminding him with a desperate tone that she had warned him the healing was incomplete. Ethan, assessing the cruel king's aura, knows that even dark healing is useless against the oppressive debuff radiating from his foe. He reaches a grim conclusion. This fight must end now, before his injury incapacitates him completely. With their weapons drawn, they prepare for the final engagement. They explode toward each other, their blades meeting in a shower of sparks as the cruel king begins to amplify his raw strength. The pressure wave is felt across the entire area, and while Ethan struggles desperately to withstand it, Dole merely laughs with sadistic glee. But then, a strange and unsettling force begins to emanate from the king, sending a chill of genuine concern through the hero. Dole pulls one hand back, channeling an immense amount of magic, before slowly bringing both hands together in a terrifying gesture. Conjuring a searing fireball, he immediately unleashes it upon the protagonist, who is forced to leap away at the last possible second to evade the blast. However, the cruel king exploits this opening, beginning the incantation for a wicked blood sword. He hurls the newly formed blade, striking the protagonist's arm directly. Liam grits his teeth, struggling to remain standing. He waits, anticipating his opponent's next move, only to notice that his enemy now possesses 4 arms. In that moment, he recognizes this is a completely different scenario from his knowledge of the game. As far as his memory served, the king was supposed to use the gravity cage before casting the explosion spell. Just then, to his utter astonishment, the cruel king does precisely that, trapping him inside a crushing, black gravitational cage. Panic floods Liam's mind as he realizes his carelessness, just before a massive explosion engulfs the area. The cruel king laughs, certain of his easy victory, only to be stunned by the sight before him. His opponent stands directly in front of him, and the king remarks that he didn't expect him to still be breathing. He demands to know if his foe is truly just a simple goblin, right after Liam yanks the blood sword from his own arm. Liam retorts, asking what his opponent means by that, declaring that the real battle has only just begun. He then glances at his wounded arm, thinking that no matter how high his statistics are, defeating a high-level boss entirely on his own is still an extremely difficult task, as the furious duel charges full speed at him. The king roars that he has quite an insolent tongue to still be talking back, and with that, he unleashes his next ferocious assault. This forces Liam into a desperate dance of evasion, until he notices something peculiar within the attack patterns. As he begins to struggle to evade, Duel relentlessly presses forward, offering no reprieve. Suddenly, Liam senses an attack hurtling toward him from his blind spot. He knows he must block it, no matter the cost, and raises his guard to intercept the blow, but is thrown backward with immense force. He crashes violently into the wall, crying out in agony from the devastating impact. His sword clatters to the floor as his legs give out, and in that moment of weakness, he spots another gravity cage forming right beneath him. He's forced to leap back, narrowly escaping its crushing grip, his mind screaming that he's reached his absolute limit. The damage he sustained is too severe. Duval's laughter echoes in the chamber as he mockingly asks what happened. Where had all that swagger and confidence vanished to? Liam summons his blade once more, but the cruel king is unimpressed. Duval declares that he won't be deceived by such a simple tactic, leaving Liam utterly bewildered. He has no idea what his opponent is even talking about. Duval then accuses him, stating that up to this point, Liam has obviously been plotting a counteroffensive, relying on deceitful and underhanded methods. Duval makes it clear that even if Liam is on the verge of death, he demands a true fight, one free of cheap tricks. He roars for Liam to behold his ultimate technique, driving his sword deep into the very ground beneath them. A wave of alarm washes over Liam. This is bad. His opponent is summoning his special familiars. Duval unleashes his secret art, the lion ant dance, releasing a torrent of overwhelming power. In an instant, a vortex of pure fire erupts, its gravitational pull dragging everything in the room toward its blazing core. A chilling dread grips Liam's heart. If he gets caught in that inferno, there will be nothing left of him. The terrifying ability intensifies, its suction growing stronger with each passing second. As the vortex consumes everything, Duval bellows that all who are devoured by his flames will be erased from existence. Liam braces himself, his eyes fixed on the spectacle of destruction, and a stark realization hits him. He has to finish this with a single, decisive blow. But his body screams in protest. The injuries have sapped nearly all his strength. Desperation begins to set in. Just then, the tiny fairy flutters from his pocket, offering a lifeline. She promises another healing spell, but Liam shouts for her to stop, ordering her to stay hidden. His warning comes too late. She is powerless against the pull, and is violently sucked toward the cruel king's cataclysmic technique. She desperately claws at the rock, but the relentless pull is far too great to resist. Dahl's maniacal laughter echoes, boasting that anyone in his presence will be utterly erased, leaving not even a whisper of ash. Lime feels his power fading, realizing with a cold dread that at this rate, his reserves will soon be empty. Desperation creeps in. He thinks if he only possessed a little more darkness, the outcome could be entirely different. Then, a sharp cry cuts through the chaos, and he spins around, his eyes searching for the source. A figure vaults toward him, it's Letty. Alarm floods the protagonist's senses, his concern for his friend overwhelming. He immediately demands to know what she's doing here, and she cuts straight to the point, asking if he's struggling from a lack of darkness. He confirms her suspicion, explaining that if he could just replenish the shadows within his body, this battle would turn. Things would be different. He knows with absolute certainty he could vanquish his foe with a single, overwhelming strike. Letty's face sets with determination. "Fine," she says. "It's time I show you what the Dark Elves are truly capable of." But she delivers a solemn warning. After this act, she will be completely powerless. She closes her eyes, focusing her will and invoking her tribe's secret art, dark devotion. A torrent of intense power erupts from her and pours into the protagonist. He rises, feeling strength surge through his very being. He asks in shock if she is using life-draining magic to transfer her darkness. She nods weakly, her body starting to collapse. She makes it clear that now, it's all up to him. Lime catches her arm, his voice thick with gratitude as he thanks her. He suddenly notices something astonishing. His wounds are sealing themselves, vanishing as if they had never existed. He can only reach one conclusion. His friend must be a princess of the elf tribe, as the sheer amount of darkness she summoned with her life force is staggering. It is a truly immense power. The cruel king continues to bellow, certain his all-consuming technique will incinerate everything. But the protagonist's confidence roars back to life as he unleashes his own formidable energy once more. He makes a silent vow to his friend that the darkness she gifted him, paid for with her own vitality, will not be in vain. With his dark energy fully restored, he vows that this power will not be squandered. Liam notes that no special technique is needed. He will simply focus all the darkness into a single, devastating point. Channeling every last drop of power into his hand, he declares that with this overwhelming force, he will end it. He will be the one to defeat the cruel king. At that very moment, the little fairy's strength finally gives out. She is helplessly pulled into the fire vortex, even as the cruel king continues to roar with mad delight. He bellows for his inferno to burn and obliterate everything in its path. Just as Liam finishes gathering his energy into one focal point, Liam unleashes his ability, a piercing blast that shoots forward, tearing directly through the heart of the flame vortex. It strikes the cruel king head-on, who lets out an agonizing scream at the instant of impact. A deafening explosion rocks the battlefield, and the vortex begins to slowly dissipate, its master having been brutally struck down. A gaping hole is torn through the king's body, and he crashes violently to the ground. Liam takes a deep, steadying breath. He reflects that his opponent was far stronger than he ever was in the game, but seeing him utterly defeated is a grim satisfaction. He is relieved to have finally achieved one of his most challenging goals. The fairy, who had been moments from oblivion, suddenly finds herself free as the force pulling her vanishes. She tumbles to the ground, utterly bewildered. She wonders in a daze if she is truly still alive. Liam's voice then cuts through her confusion, calling out to her. He asks if she could cast a spell to accelerate his friend's life force regeneration. She immediately responds, yes. She assures him it won't be a problem, and as she begins her work, she comments that in the end, it seems she was the one who ended up saving everyone. Liam allows himself a small, weary smile as several system windows appear. They notify him that he has defeated the cruel King Diul and that the Reincarnator has completed the Level 5 Awakening mission. Furthermore, the available range of his dark magic has expanded, and he has also acquired the fearsome Dark Ray skill. His final prize is the legendary Contamination sword, Arundite, taken from the fallen body of the cruel king. Liam feels a surge of satisfaction, realizing the impromptu attack he'd unleashed has now crystallized into a formal skill. He racks his brain, confirming that laser beams were never part of the original game, and concludes he can claim this devastating move as his very own creation. With his expanded reserves of darkness, he understands this new ability will be a formidable asset in any future engagement. Yet, a sobering thought grounds him. He's acutely aware of how dangerously low his power ran during the critical moments of the fight. It's a vulnerability he must rectify, because if it hadn't been for his friend's timely intervention, he knows with absolute certainty he would have been defeated right then and there. Letty begins to stir, and Liam's attention immediately shifts to her. Are you okay? He asks urgently. She nods, and he adds softly, I won, thanks to you. Her eyes widen with a fragile hope. Is that really true? She whispers, unable to hide the happiness in her voice if it is. Her gaze then drifts downward, and the full reality of the situation hits her like a tidal wave. She is cradled in the protagonist's arms. As a deep blush blooms across her face, Liam notices her discomfort, gently sets her on her feet, and takes a hasty, apologetic step back. She quickly stands, insisting she's fine, and murmuring her thanks, though the flush of embarrassment still colors her cheeks. She can't help but wonder why she always finds herself being carried by him like a princess, conveniently forgetting he'd tossed her from the sky last time. He calls her name, jolting her from her thoughts. She jumps in surprise, asking what he wants. Liam starts to say he never got the chance to ask earlier, wanting to understand why she had been there at all. However, he cuts himself off, deciding his gratitude must come first. He bows deeply, his voice filled with sincerity. He explains that because of her, he managed to defeat his powerful foe, and that she had even risked her own life to save his. Looking up with a brilliant, heartfelt smile, he thanks her one last time. Flustered and happy, she insists it was nothing. She then explains that she never in her wildest dreams expected him to actually pick a fight with a figure like King Duel, and she certainly never imagined he would emerge victorious. Now, however, she believes that every fiber of his being is truly incredible. In that quiet moment, she admits to herself that she has completely fallen for him. Just as he takes a step closer, he cuts straight to the chase, demanding to know her purpose there. Her expression hardened as she began to speak. She confessed that the reason she enrolled in the Dark Magic Academy was because, in a way, they shared the very same goal. With a chilling intensity, she revealed her singular desire, vengeance against the invaders who had seized her people's lands. Liam's eyes narrowed in recognition. I heard you were the Imperial Princess of the Dark Elf tribe, he said, his mind flashing back to their first encounter. She questioned if he had known of her royal status this entire time, then confirmed it with a solemn, yes, I am a princess, but I no longer have a country to call my own. The statement left Liam bewildered, and he urged her to explain more clearly. She clarified that, to be precise, her nation still existed, but it was now crushed under the heel of an occupying demon tribe. Her empire, she confessed with a tremor in her voice, had become a puppet state in all but name, and she feared her homeland was now a nation of slaves. Liam's mind raced, questioning if it was truly possible that the mighty Dark Elf Empire had been so completely subjugated. It would represent another monumental conspiracy he knew nothing about. As he processed this, Letty continued her harrowing story. She explained that during her father's reign, the Dark Elf Empire offered their sacred oracle refining techniques, a secret passed down through generations, as a tribute to the Demon Lord himself. This offering was in exchange for recognizing their nation as a neutral power. But, she explained grimly, that peace did not last long. Abruptly, the Demon Lord shattered their pact, unleashing a brutal occupation force upon their kingdom. Her home was overrun, the invasion led by one of the Demon Lord's 7 greats, who cast a dark curse to imprison the Emperor. The curse trapped her father in a state of suspended animation, while simultaneously draining the life essence of his closest advisors. With their beloved Emperor held as a cruel hostage, the citizens of her country were ordered to become slaves. Letty emphasized that all the citizens adored her father, and for that very reason, they had no alternative but to submit. Even to this day, she knew her people were still being forced to chant the magical engraving, to refine aura calcum. Completely stunned, Liam admitted he was unaware of this tragedy and asked if that was her true reason for being there. She reveals their desperate pleas to neighboring lands, cries for help that were met with only deafening silence. This bitter lesson, she concluded, was the true nature of their world, and with a hardening resolve, she declared her intentions. It was then she vowed to save her father and reclaim her country with her own power, completely unaware of the looming threat. For as she spoke, a cryptic sigil materialized behind her, a gateway from which a malevolent presence began to seep into reality. A smirk played on Letty's lips. She found his enigmatic nature utterly fascinating, remarking that he was, as always, a true enigma. She confessed to constantly wondering about the depths of his secrets, admitting that if he continued to be this captivating, she might just lose her mind over him, a declaration that left the protagonist momentarily bewildered. Shaking off his confusion, a crucial thought surfaced, and he pressed her, asking if she was finally ready to name the usurper who had taken her homeland. She agreed, her focus entirely on him, completely blind to the ominous magical sigil now glowing intensely behind her. With a heavy breath, she uttered the name of their conqueror, the spectral tyrant known as the Ghost King, Lich. The words had barely left her lips when he manifested from the shadows, prompting an immediate, panicked shout from Liam. Fear for his companions gripped him as he commanded them to take cover behind him without a second's hesitation. Letty instantly scrambled for his protection, while the small fairy darted into the safety of his coat pocket. The Ghost King's voice echoed, remarking with cold amusement that he'd always suspected the reports of the cruel king's demise were greatly exaggerated. A tremor of fear ran through Letty at the sight of him, but she found her voice, demanding to know the reason for his sudden appearance. He studied her with chilling intensity, replying that while her sudden mutation was notable, it alone could not account for the sheer scale of her power. Our protagonist felt a chill crawl down his spine, recognizing the suffocating aura of darkness pouring from the Ghost King. It was the unmistakable pressure of one of the legendary Seven Greats. He knew instinctively that simple tactics would be utterly useless against such a foe. Stealing her nerves, Letty materialized a swirling wind arrow, her voice ringing out as she once again demanded the spectral being answer her. Liam cried out in fear, begging her to halt the attack, but his warning came a fraction of a second too late. She unleashes a furious barrage of attacks, but each one proves utterly futile. Her spells phase harmlessly through Malakor's ethereal form, as the Ghost King coldly tells the young woman to be silent. He then begins to chant in a forgotten tongue, conjuring a potent circle of dark magic that ensnares Alara. A wave of dread washes over her as she comprehends her perilous situation. However, the very circle that held her captive is suddenly shattered by a series of powerful strikes, leaving her completely stunned. Kale, erupting with his power of darkness, sends a clear and menacing message to the Ghost King. He warns him to stay away from his cherished friend. For a moment, Malakor seems genuinely taken aback by the protagonist's immense power. Kale's mind races. He recognizes the intricate pattern of the arcane circle. It's the very same corruption spell used on the hidden Goblin village. A horrifying realization dawns on him. Not only did Malakor orchestrate the invasion of his friend's homeland, but he is the architect of all the suffering in his life. Malakor takes a slow, deliberate breath, realizing this is exactly as his master, the Demon Lord, had foretold while observing the protagonist with a newfound, chilling intensity. He concludes that KL must be selected, marked as a specimen from one of the most critical species for analysis. The situation feels surreal, but Malakor declares that first, KL must engage in combat and prove his true might. With that chilling proclamation, Alara is brutally slammed to the ground. KL whirls around, disoriented. He struggles to process the sudden turn of events, only to witness a shadowy dagger plunge toward his dear friend. In an instant, another arcane circle materializes, engulfing her completely as KL lets out a desperate scream for her to the Ghost King. Malakor mocks him, asking if the mighty Dragonite failed to notice the secondary spell's activation, a trap he had laid from the start. Then, unleashing an even greater surge of dark energy, he demands that the protagonist make his choice. Kale is utterly bewildered, struggling to comprehend what kind of choice the Ghost King could possibly be forcing upon him. His confusion turns to shock as Malakor conjures a spell, revealing a startling and impossible vision before his very eyes. Revealing the hidden goblin village engulfed in utter chaos, the Ghost King demanded that Liam first weigh the scales of fate. Liam, consumed by disbelief, unleashed a torrent of curses at the Ghost King as his hand shot to his sword hilt, ready for battle. However, the Lich held up a hand, urging him not to be so hasty, pointing out that the other side of the scale had yet to be revealed. With that, he conjured another vision spell. This one showing Liam's dear friend lying helpless and defeated in a desolate location. A desperate scream tore from Liam's throat. Unmoved, the Ghost King materialized an hourglass, its sands already beginning to fall. He sneered that, just like his precious hidden village, the Dark Elf's time was also rapidly running out. He then granted the protagonist a mere 30 minutes to make an impossible decision. Who would he save? The Lich then elaborated that the girl was imprisoned at the very peak of his formidable castle. This fortress, he explained, was situated directly opposite the Goblin village, a place known as Dual Castle. This cruel placement meant that reaching either the hidden Goblin village or the castle would take the exact same amount of precious time. And so, with the sadistic stage set, the Lich demanded to know which life Liam would choose to preserve. He added with chilling eagerness that he couldn't wait to see which way the scales would tip, but Liam remained terrifyingly silent. As Liam calculated his impossible options, the Lich made it clear that this choice was nothing more than useful data for his analysis. Suddenly, Liam began to unleash a torrent of powerful darkness, an energy so intense it even took the Ghost King by surprise. As the raw, dark energy pulsed from him, Liam took a steadying breath and declared that his choice was already made. Then, moving with blinding speed, he delivered a devastating strike, cleaving the Lich in two before the villain could even react. As the Lich's form began to dissipate into nothingness, a peculiar stone clattered to the ground where he once stood. Liam's sharp eyes caught the detail, and he instantly realized the horrifying truth. The Ghost King was merely a clone, fashioned from an orichalcum stone. It was a dark elf technique, a chilling confirmation that the real master of this cruel game was still very much alive. In that tense moment, a tiny fairy darted from the protagonist's pocket, her voice filled with profound worry as she called out his name. He was confronted with an impossible ultimatum. Would he choose to save Letty, or would he sacrifice her for his own sister? Lime calls out to the fairy, declaring his decision is made. She screams in desperation, demanding to know which fate he has chosen for them. With unwavering conviction, he turns and roars that his choice is to save them both. Our story shifts back 1 hour, to the hidden village of the goblins. The weather was exceptionally pleasant, and Mew observed with satisfaction that all their preparations were complete. Lily, beaming with excitement, expressed her eagerness to see the result, before proudly unveiling a magnificent and delicious-looking cake. She noted how incredibly sweet the strawberries looked, to which Mew explained it was a direct result of their newly acquired clean well water. They exchanged a look of pure anticipation, silently agreeing it was time before eagerly reaching for a taste of the cake. Their joyful moment was shattered by screams from outside. They turned, confused, and rushed to throw open the door. They were met with a scene of utter horror, as grotesque creatures swarmed the village, attacking the residents in a display of pure chaos. Mew frantically asked what was happening, but Lily recognized the unfolding nightmare. It was exactly what her older brother had warned them about. She recalled his words, how he had assured them the contamination magic was dispelled and the elder could finally rest easy. He had explained that the clean water was likely sourced from deep underground, meaning they could finally grow their crops again. She remembered the overwhelming happiness she felt then, dreaming of all the delicious food they would soon be able to create. But Lime's warning had been stern and clear. The danger was not truly over. He cautioned that the one who originally cast the spell might eventually make an appearance, and if that terrible day ever arrived, they were to use the secret corridor to ensure everyone could escape. That chilling memory snapped her back to the present. She yelled for Mew, and seeing the monsters spreading destruction, began shouting to gather the terrified villagers immediately. They sprinted towards the secret passage, desperately guiding their people through the shimmering portal to safety. Just then, a bizarre and menacing monster appeared before them, snarling that she, at least, would not be getting away. Lily remained hopeful, believing that at this rate, every last villager would successfully make it into the corridor. However, trusting her instincts, she seizes a weapon and firmly tells her sister to stand clear. Taking a firm stance, she unleashes a devastating blow against the portal, causing fractures to spread across its surface. As it shatters, she apologizes to her sister, explaining that it was their only remaining choice. Her sister responds with understanding, affirming that this sacrifice was necessary for everyone's survival. Lily acknowledges this, certain it's precisely what her brother would have done, before they both turn to face the colossal beast. A tremor of fear runs through Lily at the sight of the horrifying creature, her thoughts drifting to her brother. Meanwhile, in the throne room of Dual Castle, Lime declares his vow to use the full extent of his dark magic and every skill he's acquired to save his sisters and their friend, Letty. He calls for the fairy, who appears instantly, and he quickly imparts a critical piece of information to her. Following their brief and intense exchange, she simply nods, indicating she understands the mission. Lime impresses upon her that failure is simply not an option, emphasizing that he is placing his absolute trust in her. He then accesses his system, declaring his sister as his first priority and selecting the fast travel option. In a flash, he teleports to the hidden goblin village, immediately unleashing his dark magic, a wave of darkness. He casts the spell upon the ground, causing his potent magic to surge and spread throughout the entire area. The tendrils of darkness flow through the village until they make contact with his sisters, pinpointing their exact location. With their position confirmed, he takes off like a shot, effortlessly dispatching any enemy that stands in his way. At the same time, the bizarre creature taunts Lily, remarking on the nobility of her decision to block her own escape. It sneers that such a resolute soul would be a perfectly suitable component for its master Lich's experiment. Lily prepares herself for the worst, ordering her little sister to stay safely behind her. Miyu is visibly terrified for Lily, but Lily shouts at her again, demanding that she follow her order without question. She vows to defeat the monster, a declaration that is met with derisive laughter and the cold certainty that her resistance is utterly useless. But he decides to indulge in a bit of twisted amusement first, unleashing an ancient and sinister incantation. The spell causes Lily's weapon to contort and melt, a clear sign of his dark power surging forth. With a chilling whisper, he proclaims his true desire, her very soul. At that exact moment, Liam is a blur of motion, storming through the village. He carves a path through every monstrous obstacle, his mind consumed by a single thought. He must be faster. He knows his sister is just ahead, but the creature looms over Lily, ready to deliver the final, fatal strike. She can only scream, calling for her big brother's help, when suddenly, Mia lunges in front of her, absorbing the full force of the devastating blow. Lily's world shatters. She stares in horror, unable to comprehend that her little sister just sacrificed herself to protect her. A heart-wrenching scream tears from her throat as she calls out to Mia, desperately asking if she is all right. Lily continues to cry Mia's name, but her pleas are met with a terrifying, unnerving silence. The creature itself seems taken aback by the small girl's bravery. Just as Mia's eyes slowly flutter open, she gazes at her sister and whispers her thanks for freeing a slave like her, explaining that the time they spent together in the village was a true gift. Tears stream down Lily's face as Mia's voice weakens, begging her to seize this opportunity and escape. However, the creature lets out an exasperated sigh, remarking how such sentimental displays truly ruin its mood. It then declares with cold finality that the only thing that has changed is the order in which they will perish. A blaze of fury ignites within Lily. She whirls around, roaring that she could never be defeated by a monster like him. The creature's patience snaps, and it bellows back that her turn to face oblivion has finally arrived. But the words have barely left its mouth when it is struck by an overwhelmingly powerful attack. It is Liam, who with a single, decisive strike, cleaves the monster completely in two. Upon seeing her brother, Lily is overcome with relief. He, however, is visibly frustrated with himself for not arriving sooner. He apologizes for his tardiness, but Lily quickly explains that Mia is gravely wounded. Liam's fist clenches, his knuckles turning white, as he confirms that he knows. He reassures his sister, urging her to trust him completely as time is quickly running out. Liam channels his forbidden power, weaving a complex incantation as dark magic swirls around him, beginning the summoning ritual. As the final words of the chant echo through the air, he calls out a name, summoning the one being who can help, the Goblin Priestess. In a flash of ethereal light, she materializes before him. The priestess observes the grim scene, noting that for Liam to call upon her, the situation must be dire. Gently, he scoops his little sister into his arms, her life fading. He desperately asks if the priestess can save her. Her ancient eyes scan the child's wounds, her expression turning somber. Candidly, she admits the wounds are mortal, a whisper away from being irreversible, but a sliver of hope remains. However, she clarifies that this is no simple fix. The girl will require absolute sanctuary, a place of complete rest to recover. Liam clutches onto that hope, declaring it's all he could ask for, and entrusts his sister's life into her hands. The priestess channels her mystical energy, and in a blink, they vanish. Safe at last, Lily exhales a shaky breath, thanking her brother profusely. But as relief washes over her, she notices the lingering tension in his eyes, a dawning realization that his mission isn't over. A moment of contemplation passes before she calls out to him once more, her voice soft but certain. She thanks him again, not just for saving her, a sentiment that momentarily puzzles Liam. She presses further, asking about the urgent matter he clearly abandoned to come to her side. She needs to know the truth. Liam is taken aback, amazed at how easily his perceptive little sister saw through his facade. "How did you know?" he asks, bewildered. She offers a weak but knowing smile, simply stating, Because I'm your sister. She takes his hand, her grip surprisingly firm, and tells him that if another life hangs in the balance, he must go to them. A wave of anguish for his friend washes over Liam. Meanwhile, deep within the Ghost King's fortress, inside the cold, dark confinement chamber, Letitia lies motionless on the stone floor. A shadowy dagger remains plunged into her chest. With a surge of effort, her eyes flutter open as she struggles to rise. Disoriented, she struggles to grasp her surroundings, only for a searing pain to pull her back to a horrifying reality, a dark dagger embedded deep within her, pulsing with malevolent power. The corrupting energy overwhelms her, her strength failing as she collapses to the cold earth, just as the spectral form of the Ghost King materializes before her very eyes. A chilling thought invades her mind. Is this how it all ends? A wave of defiance swells within her. She refuses to let her story conclude in this desolate place. There is still far too much she must accomplish, too many promises to keep for the people of the secret Goblin village. As Liam urgently explains his friend's dire situation, his sister's voice cuts through his panic, ringing with conviction that he must go and do what is necessary. She asserts with unwavering certainty that she will be fine, commanding him to waste no more time and go to the rescue at once. Liam hesitates, voicing his concern that rogue monsters still lurk within the village's perimeter, a threat he cannot ignore. Lily calmly acknowledges the lingering danger, then cryptically asks to borrow one of his friends for protection. A look of pure confusion crosses his face as he questions exactly which friend she could possibly be referring to. Turning to face him directly, Lily declares that the days of him constantly shielding her from harm are officially over. She reminds him that deep down, he knows this to be true, and once more implores him to entrust the village's defense entirely to her. The era of him coddling her has truly ended. Liam, taken aback but undeniably proud of his sister's confidence, feels his heart swell. A small smile touches his lips as he concedes, formally passing the responsibility into her capable hands. With the matter settled, he moves to an open clearing and begins to channel his energy, invoking the formidable dark goblin's summoning magic. As the ancient words of the incantation echo in the air, he calls upon the ancestral spirits of the goblin tribe to rise and answer his summons. From the shadows, the imposing figures of the goblin general and his soldiers materialize, to whom Liam explains their singular, vital duty. For a limited time, their mission is to defend the villagers with all their might. The general bows his head, affirming his complete understanding. He adds with solemn gravity that they will fight fiercely, for this is the sacred ground where their own kin are laid to rest. Liam expresses his gratitude to the loyal general before turning back to his sister, his expression now one of pure, unyielding determination. "I am going now, to save my precious friend," he declares. Lily meets his gaze and offers a simple, confident nod of approval, assuring her that he'll be fine and telling her to be careful. With a reassuring fist bump, their pact is sealed. Lila's heart swells with relief, knowing her brother is always by her side. Leo then turns to the Goblin General, declaring that, in addition to defending the village, he has one final, crucial request. After entrusting his plan to the general, he explodes into motion, a blur of speed aimed at rescuing his friend. He knows conventional fast travel is useless to reach the remote fortress where Alara is imprisoned, so he unleashes his summoning magic, calling forth the mighty strong-arm goblin. Without a moment's hesitation, Leo leaps into the colossal goblin's palm, roaring at his summon to hurl him with every ounce of its strength. The strong-arm goblin digs its feet into the earth, and with a thunderous roar, launches our hero through the sky like a human cannonball. But Leo's audacious strategy is far from complete. While soaring through the air, he casts another spell, this time summoning the fearsome goblin dragon. With his aerial transport secured, a single thought burns in his mind: he will save Alara. Meanwhile, high atop the Ghost King's desolate castle, within the cold, dark confinement chamber, a battered and wounded Alara is approached by the menacing Lich. A defiant thought crosses her mind: she refuses to perish here. But the Ghost King's chilling voice cuts through her resolve, telling her not to despair. He sneers, informing her that her end won't be that swift, as his mind drifts back to an earlier, humiliating memory. It was the moment he was effortlessly dismantled by our protagonist, despite him being a mere summoner of goblins. He seethes at the memory, knowing that even his powerful clone was obliterated in the blink of an eye. Driven by this recollection, he casts a vision spell, confident that his analysis of the boy's power is progressing smoothly. As the spell crystallizes, he savors the thought of witnessing the utter panic and despair on our hero's face. But the vision that unfolds is not one of triumph, but of utter shock. His entire legion lies defeated, a sight he can't comprehend as possible. How could Leo have possibly reached the village so quickly? A dreadful realization dawns on him. The castle is the boy's next target. His head whips around, his gaze falling upon the collapsed form of Leo's friend on the chamber floor. He decides she must be eliminated immediately. He would then resurrect her as a tormented spirit, a spectral puppet forced to turn her blade against the very friend racing to save her. Meanwhile, Lime streaks across the sky atop his summoned beast, desperately urging it, "Can't you fly any faster?" His draconic mount retorts that this is their maximum velocity, a reply that does little to quell the rising tide of panic within Lime. With every league they cross, a single, desperate prayer echoes in his mind, that his friend is still safe. He clings to one unwavering certainty: he will reach her, and he will save her. Back within the Ghost King's fortress, Lich informs Letty with a chilling calm that there has been a sudden change in plans. Her life is to be forfeit, effective immediately. As the menacing scythe arcs into the air, Letty's thoughts race to her one hope, a desperate plea for Lime to appear and rescue her from this nightmare. Lich offers a twisted sort of comfort, whispering that her end will be but a fleeting moment of sleep before she awakens as a spirit. In that new form, he promises, she will be free from all pain. Tears stream down Letty's face as she prays for a miracle, for her friend to somehow arrive in time, but despair takes hold. She knows he won't make it. With those final, chilling words, "Become my servant," Lich's scythe descends. Letty is frozen in disbelief, her mind unable to process her imminent demise, when suddenly, a resounding clash of steel shatters the silence. The Ghost King's attack has been intercepted. Both Lich and his captive stare in confusion as a warrior, bathed in a radiant aura, materializes before them. Having thwarted the fatal blow, the mysterious figure tightens his grip on his sword and retaliates with a powerful strike of his own. The force of the blow sends Lich staggering backward, who roars in fury, demanding to know who dares to interfere with his grand design. The warrior declares his name, Loot Arcadia, the Dark Knight. He follows this revelation by stating simply that he is a friend of Lime. His gaze locks onto the Ghost King, acknowledging him as Lich, one of the 7 greats serving under the Demon Lord's command. Loot Arcadia then issues a solemn vow. He is here to eliminate him. The scene then flashes back 30 minutes, to a conversation between the protagonist and a fairy. Lime had explained his strategy. Before journeying to the hidden goblin village, he would first use a fast travel spell to make a crucial stop at the seer's dormitory. He instructed the fairy to remain there and deliver a message to a specific individual, a message comprised of just a few carefully chosen words. The message was simple: "Become my ally." The fairy, taken aback by its brevity, questioned if that was truly all she needed to say. Lime confirmed with absolute certainty, assuring her that the intended recipient would understand the profound meaning behind that simple phrase. He then called forth the very sword he had claimed in his triumphant battle against the Dual King. He entrusted the blade to the fairy, stressing that failure was simply not an option, for he was placing his absolute faith in her. Back in the present, the Ghost King scoffed, questioning if the man standing before him had truly uttered such audacious words, that he was a Dark Knight. Kai braced himself, his voice a low growl as he told the Ghost King to prepare to forfeit his life. The Ghost King readied his defenses, but in that very instant, a thunderous explosion ripped through the castle's grand ceiling. Leaving Kai, both confused and astonished, he saw it was Leon descending from above. Leaping from the back of his dragon, he headed straight for his friend, who was overcome with joy at the sight of him. Kai commented to Leon on his swift arrival, joking that it was truly a shame. He had been moments away from finishing off the ghost himself. The hero then asked if they could fight as one. Kai replied that it was not a bad idea in the slightest. The ghost, incandescent with rage, called them reckless fools. It demanded to know who they presumed they were, asking if they had come only to mock him. Leon calmly replied that they were not mocking him at all, and Kai emphasized that it was the Ghost King himself, who had chosen to invade the Dark Elf Empire and cast a wicked curse upon Elara, their beloved princess. The hero took a deep, measured breath, his voice laced with cold fury as he spoke. The Ghost King had cast a vile contamination spell on the hidden goblin village. He had assaulted his 2 sisters and the villagers with monstrous beasts. His demeanor turned deadly serious as he unleashed his darkness. He wanted to know if the Ghost King ever believed a piece of filth like him possessed even a shred of dignity to begin with. The Ghost King sneered, dismissing them as insignificant ants. They were inferior lives, and now that they stood before him, they would pay the ultimate price with their own existence. He then commanded them to bear witness to his supreme technique, the Dance of the Dead, as he summoned legions of undead creatures. A wave of fear washed over Letty, her heart pounding for her friends as Liam drew his blade. He urgently commanded his companion to fully unleash his shadowy power, synchronizing their very breath and spirit. After a moment of intense focus, the two successfully merged their abilities, launching themselves at incredible speeds toward the ghastly creatures. With flawless coordination, they tore through the Ghost King's summons, leaving a trail of absolute destruction in their wake. A relieved smile graced Letty's lips as she witnessed her friend's spectacular combat prowess, thinking to herself how truly formidable they were. The protagonist mercilessly continued the slaughter, and much like him, the Ghost King remained eerily silent. He watched his monstrous creations get effortlessly erased, a seed of doubt beginning to sprout in his mind about the unfolding situation. His observation was shattered when he noticed a new threat, the Dark Knight, standing directly before him, poised to deliver a final blow. Liam seized the opportunity presented by the Ghost King's momentary distraction, materializing behind him for a devastating pincer attack with his ally. "It's over!" he roared, as they unleashed a colossal strike upon their target. Luke watched the Ghost King's form dissipate, but his keen eyes caught a subtle detail. It was merely another decoy, crafted from an orichalcum stone. He spun around instantly, his voice sharp with urgency as he demanded to know the true location of the Ghost King's body. From a hidden vantage point, the Ghost King sneered at their efforts, calling them fools through his scrying spell. He mused that they had only succeeded in destroying one of his many elaborate clones. Controlling the spirits of the departed was far from his only skill. He wielded a technique that allowed him to hide his physical form. Concealed within a hidden space, he could launch his assaults, certain they would perish without ever grasping his true presence. A flicker of confusion crossed his features, however, as his magical sight could no longer find any trace of them. A sense of panic began to set in, as he frantically questioned where on earth they could have possibly disappeared. He was startled into silence by a voice that spoke of his ultimate ability, the dimension of nothingness. It was a terrifying power that rendered its user completely invisible to their opponent's senses, enabling a barrage of unseen, fatal attacks. The dimension of nothingness is cast at random and cannot be predicted. He whips his head around, searching for the source of the voice. It's our hero, who coolly points out that if a player were to activate the highest level of detection magic, it becomes entirely possible to pinpoint the exact location of the creature that cast the spell, the dimension of the void. At that moment, Liam's dark aura intensifies, swelling around him. He makes it chillingly clear that he knows every single one of the Ghost King's attack patterns. A cold sweat breaks out across the Ghost King's brow. He can't fathom how a mere subordinate could possess such impossible knowledge. Liam adds, a hint of relief in his tone, that his old strategies still hold true against the Ghost King. Even if the grand narrative of this world has shifted, he taunts that the Ghost King is incapable of adapting, ultimately proving to be nothing more than just another disposable boss. As the spectral form of the Lich begins to dissipate, he declares that even as he vanishes, he might meet his end right here and now. His final analysis is complete. He reveals a startling truth. The Ghost King is a being summoned into this world by a different deity, the goddess of the goblins. The revelation sends a tremor of shock through our protagonist. As he processes the boss's final words, the Ghost King emphasizes that Liam is no mere demon. In fact, he views him as an abomination, a threat far greater than the celebrated hero and his armies. Before being utterly consumed by the encroaching darkness, the Ghost King delivers his final, chilling message. The results of his analysis, he warns, have already been transmitted to the demon faction. They've been sent directly to Hermes. He warns our hero to brace himself for the reckoning that is fast approaching. Luke rushes to his friend's side, cheering that they finally defeated the Ghost King, only to grow confused by our hero's unnerving silence. He doesn't utter a single word, his mind racing with a chilling thought. The Demon Lord now senses his presence. He had always known this day would come, that his existence would eventually be discovered, but now, he understands the true ferocity of the battle that lies ahead. Luke's relief was overshadowed by concern, as his friend showed no sign of joy after vanquishing the formidable boss. Lime moved to her side, his hands glowing with restorative light, and as he began to heal her, the shadowy corruption on her chest started to fade. Her eyelids fluttered, and she slowly regained consciousness. As she sat up, Lime gently explained that the curse had finally been lifted. He cautioned that her mind might still be in a state of confusion, and Letty's eyes widened in surprise as she focused on her friend's familiar face. A warm smile touched his lips as he advised her to rest a little longer. She returned a faint smile, her thoughts echoing with the realization that he had saved her. The protagonist, still worried, felt compelled to understand what she had endured during her ordeal. She brushed it off, replying that nothing of note had happened, admitting only that she was lost in the thought of being rescued by him yet again. She then confided that, despite current appearances, she was once celebrated as the most talented knight in her homeland. Her actions had saved hundreds of citizens from grave danger. She took a deep breath, admitting that ever since she met him, everything had changed. Now, she was the one who was constantly in need of saving. Lime looked perplexed, failing to understand the true weight of her words. He reminded her that the same held true for him, making it clear that when all was said and done, they were friends. The words stung her, leaving her momentarily shocked, but she concealed it with a laugh, agreeing he was right and thanking him once more. With that, she pushed herself to her feet, declaring she felt much better and insisting they should leave immediately. However, her body betrayed her. A sudden dizzy spell sent her falling backward, but Lime caught her instantly, urging her to be more careful. She stammered an apology, feeling a deep blush creep up her neck at being held so securely in the arms of her beloved companion. An unusual brilliance began to radiate from her eyes, a strange sight that left Lime puzzled. Mortified, she desperately wondered what words might spill from her mouth in her flustered state. Letty fought to confess the truth of her feelings, but the words caught in her throat, leaving the protagonist oblivious to her internal conflict. He pressed for an answer, wanting to know what was troubling his friend, but she decided she couldn't reveal her heart to him. It was still too soon, she concluded silently, and at that very moment, Lute approached the two of them. He clears his throat gently, offering a quiet apology for intruding on their private moment. With a hopeful tone, he asks if his friend could perhaps introduce him to the young woman they rescued, a question that elicits a soft laugh from the fairy. She playfully remarks on her disbelief that they had completely forgotten their saviors, causing Letty and Lime to spring apart with flustered apologies. Never one to miss a beat, Lute puffs out his chest, proudly declaring that his own role in the battle was undeniably significant. The fairy nods with a knowing smile, remarking that she understands exactly how he feels, given how the hero always seems to claim all the glory. Letty turns away, her face burning with embarrassment, as she wonders to herself when she had become so transparent with her feelings. Lime announces they will hold a celebration for their victory, assuring his friend it will be the perfect chance to introduce himself to everyone properly. Stepping closer, he places a firm hand on his friend's shoulder, adding with a grin that he wants to introduce him to his little sister as well. Looking him straight in the eyes, he says with genuine warmth that he wants the whole world to meet his greatest friend. Overjoyed by such heartfelt words, Lute is filled with emotion as the protagonist signals for everyone to resume their day. With their mission there officially concluded, life begins to return to normal in the secret Goblin village. A quiet determination fills the air as the people work tirelessly to rebuild their community from the ruins left by the beastly attack. Everyone contributes what they can, while some find solace in visiting the graves of their loved ones who made the ultimate sacrifice in battle. In a secluded room, the fairy priestess stands over Mew, her voice a low hum as she weaves a powerful healing spell. A moment later, Mew's eyes flutter open. Lily is overcome with joy to see her awake, and Mew finds immense comfort in seeing her sister by her side. Lily joyfully informs the priestess that her sister has finally awakened, and the goblin confirms that this signifies her consciousness is returning. In that case, she declares, the worst is now behind them. The remainder of her injuries will surely heal with time. Awestruck and hopeful, Lily asks with a trembling voice if it's truly possible that the danger has passed. She tenderly takes her sister's hand, whispering how incredibly relieved she is to hear those reassuring words. The priestess, announcing that her work there is complete, takes her leave, as Lily offers her profound and repeated thanks. Clutching her sister's hand, a desperate hope flickered in her eyes as she whispered the question that haunted her. Was she truly, really alive? Lily's voice was a soothing balm, confirming the miracle their older brother had saved her. A wave of overwhelming joy washed over Mayu at the news. The memory surfaced instantly, his promise echoing in her mind. I will always protect you. Just then, a sharp knock on the door broke the tender moment, and Lily moved to answer it, her breath caught in her throat. Standing on the threshold was her brother, a gentle smile on his face as he announced his return. With a cry of pure joy, she launched herself into his arms. She tearfully welcomed him home. Later, buzzing with an infectious energy, Lily took charge of the atmosphere. She announced that, upon hearing rumors of a celebration, she had taken the liberty of preparing a grand feast for them all. Jaws went slack as everyone laid eyes on the magnificent spread, a truly delicious sight to behold. Seizing the moment, Lime's cheerful voice rang out, calling for the party to officially begin. Once everyone was settled, Lute rose to his feet, his voice booming with confidence as he introduced himself as a kobold. He explained that he was a classmate of Lime's at the esteemed Dark Magic Academy, and warmly invited everyone to simply call him Lute. He then proudly added that he and Lime went way back, having been friends for a very long time. It was, he declared, an absolute pleasure to finally meet his dear friend's sisters. Lily beamed, replying that the pleasure was all hers. She offered her sincere thanks for looking after her older brother. Lime, however, listened with a growing sense of confusion. Something about his friend's formal greeting felt off. he couldn't help but wonder about the peculiar tone. It sounded less like meeting a friend's family, and more like a nervous suitor meeting his girlfriend's father for the very first time. Letty eagerly raised her hand, announcing it was her turn. "My name is Letty," she began with a bright smile. She introduced herself as another of Lime's classmates from the Dark Magic Academy. Miu then offered a gentle greeting, explaining that Lime was the one who had saved her life. "And now," she added softly, "I am his and Lily's sister." Overjoyed, Lily exclaimed how wonderful it was that her brother had made so many new friends during his time away. As his sister, she confessed, it filled her heart with happiness. A shy smile touched Letty's lips as her mind drifted back to an earlier moment. She recalled the day Lime was leaving the academy, and how she had seen those two girls with him. At the time, she had simply concluded they must be his sisters. Back in the present, Lily stood up, ready to make an announcement of her own. She voices her hope that everyone will continue to look after her brother, and while the group readily agrees, Lime's expression darkens with subtle disapproval. With a deliberate cough to command the room, he declares that the moment calls for a toast, prompting them all to raise their glasses and shout in unison. After the meal, Lime remarks that, with the threats of the Cruel King and the Ghost King now neutralized, a new problem is on the horizon. He predicts that the Demon Lord's army will likely intensify its oppression of the lower-class demons in the power vacuum. Lute immediately connects the dots, asking if that is why Lime needs to secure an audience with the Demon Lord himself. Lime confirms this, explaining his preference to meet the ruler on friendly terms, not as an adversary. However, he reveals there is a more pressing matter he must attend to first, turning his attention to his friend, Letty. He asks for her help in liberating her homeland, the subjugated evil elf empire, a proposal that visibly stuns her as she questions if he is truly serious. She presses him, asking if he's genuinely willing to undertake such a monumental task, and he replies with unwavering resolve that he absolutely is. He lays out his strategy, explaining that with Lich, the commander of the occupying forces, now gone, their chances have never been better. He believes reclaiming her nation is now a far more achievable goal, and inspired by his conviction, Lute declares he will also lend his strength to the cause. Overjoyed, Letty thanks them both profusely, as Lime turns to his sister, asking if she would be all right with them, staying a while longer. She gives her blessing without hesitation, telling them to do what must be done, and her brother's face lights up with gratitude for her understanding. Looking upon the hopeful faces of his friend and his supportive sister, he realizes that, once the elves are freed from their chains, they will be facing the most decisive moment of their entire journey. Even as in the distant castle, the Demon Lord Hermes takes notice. The Dark Ruler studies the protagonist's data, a deep intrigue growing within him as he recognizes the boy as a traveler from another world. This unique origin makes the hero an object of immense fascination for him, and after some time, the scene shifts to the oppressive, evil elf empire. The protagonist and his companions arrive on the outskirts of the territory, beginning their careful reconnaissance to plan its liberation. Their eyes scan the city, taking in the heavily armed soldiers guarding the entrance and patrolling every street with an iron fist. They witness the troops openly mistreating the elven citizens and consuming their food without payment, as Letty confirms with a heavy heart that nothing has changed since the day she escaped. Their forces were now exercising total control over the corrupted elves. She then urged everyone to be patient, vowing that she would be the one to set them free. Lime remarked with tactical precision that the enemy's entire command infrastructure must be in a state of utter chaos. This was, of course, due to the conspicuous absence of their commander, Lich. He declared that this created the perfect window of opportunity for them to infiltrate, a point which Lute immediately emphasized. He conceded that breaching the main gate would be nearly impossible, but then his expression shifted as a new idea dawned on him. He knew Letty must be aware of some clandestine route into the city, and he directly asked her if that was the case. She answered with a simple no, explaining that there was no convenient, hidden passage like the one he was fantasizing about. A confident smile played on Lime's lips as he declared they would simply enter through the front. He then turned to his friend, saying he would need her to endure a little hardship. Her confusion was evident as she demanded an explanation. Once he laid out his audacious plan, they proceeded toward the city gate. The approach of a lone figure caught the guards' immediate attention, their eyes locking onto the sight of someone dragging a shackled prisoner. They moved to intercept, demanding to know their identities. The elf announced that she had captured a traitorous elf who had escaped from the Empire. She had come, she claimed, to return the fugitive as a gift. The prisoner, of course, was Letty, accompanied by her two fake guards. These guards were, in fact, the protagonist and Lute in disguise. As one of the soldiers cross-referenced the records, he made a shocking discovery. The prisoner was identified as the missing Imperial princess. The disguised elf explained that she'd heard the princess vanished after the rebellion. A rebellion, she specified, against the occupying army, and that she had taken on the personal mission of locating her. She then shoved Letty forward, telling the soldiers that, as they could clearly see, she had brought the princess back alive and unharmed. For this service, she expected a substantial reward. The soldiers remarked that she was quite bold in her greed, but they conceded it was acceptable, granting her entry and directing her to the headquarters located inside Luelf Castle. Once they were safely inside the city, the group ducked into a secluded alleyway, where Lime confirmed that everything had gone according to plan. He then apologized to his friend for casting her in the role of the villain, but she assured him it was fine, saying that posing as an enemy sympathizer was a necessary sacrifice, was undoubtedly the most effective way to enter undetected. Yet she adds that even with its success, she finds him a complete enigma for devising such an audacious plan. At that moment, the fairy, who had disguised herself as an elf, reverts to her true form and asks Letty to repeat the compliment, admitting she quite enjoyed hearing it. Lute, looking slightly uncomfortable, shifts the focus back to their mission, asking what their next move will be. Letty declares with grim determination that their primary objective is to make contact with the elven resistance. With that settled, they press on through the city streets until Lime abruptly halts, his gaze fixed on a disturbing scene, a soldier escorting 3 shackled elven prisoners. He immediately demands to know what is happening, his voice tight with concern, prompting a somber explanation from Letty. She reveals that those elves born with a special gift for magic are systematically captured and taken to the orichalcum mines, located behind the castle. There, they are cruelly forced to expend their magic to refine orichalcum ore, a relentless cycle of labor that the soldiers enforce day after day. They are treated no differently than slaves, a reality that Lute finds utterly despicable. The fairy somberly emphasizes that this brutal oppression is hauntingly similar to the persecution the goblins have long endured. After walking further in heavy silence, Letty finally announces their arrival. She places her hand flat against the cold stone of a wall and begins to recite a haunting, ancient chant. As the words, spoken in the forbidden tongue of the dark elves, leave her lips, a stone begins to glow with an intense light, revealing a secret door. She urges her companions to follow her inside. They navigate the dim passage, soon arriving at another door at the end of the corridor. The very instant they cross the threshold, an old elf looks up, his eyes widening in pure shock as he recognizes Letty, and immediately calls out to her. "Your Highness," he gasps, taking a ragged breath, his voice trembling with disbelief. "I cannot believe that you are truly safe." She offers him a gentle smile, replying that she feels the same seeing him. However, she quickly clarifies, "I am not a princess anymore. I am a knight," she states firmly. "Do you still remember that?" He responds without hesitation. "There is no mistake. Those words alone prove it is you," he affirms, his expression filled with awe. "We heard rumors that you had reached the domain of King Duel." He looks at her, deeply impressed, and leans in, his voice dropping to a hopeful whisper. "Your return, does it mean you have actually defeated him?" She affirms his suspicion with a steady voice. "Yes. It means exactly what you think. However, she has one condition, asking if he has the power to rally everyone together after some time." Elias manages to summon every member of the elven resistance, where she then presents the legendary sword. It was the very blade the protagonist, Leo, received after vanquishing the cruel king, a sight that leaves everyone awestruck. An elf asks if it is truly the blade of condemnation, to which Lila confirms, explaining it was Leo who had rightfully claimed it. Elias approaches Lila, whispering with doubt. He seems to be nothing more than a common goblin. Her eyes flash with fury as she hisses back. "Don't be ridiculous. That goblin saved my life." Leo lets out an awkward laugh from a distance, calling out, "For what it's worth, I can hear everything." Elias flushes with embarrassment and quickly apologizes for the offense before taking a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the sword. "With this blade," he declares, his voice filled with renewed hope, "we can save the Emperor, who is imprisoned within Luelf Castle." He then roars to the assembled elves, "We will raise the flag of rebellion." Leela takes this moment to explain that the one who cursed her father and plunged him into his comatose state was Rencia, a dark mage, and the commander-in-chief of the occupying forces. The mention of a dark mage immediately piques Leo's interest, as it is the same path of magic he himself walks. Lila adds grimly that Rencia is renowned as the most powerful mage on the entire demon continent. "I've heard his dark magic is said to surpass even that of the Seven Greats," she says. Leo simply replies, "I understand." He then asks, "So, all we have to do now is defeat him?" Hearing this, Elias whips around, his face a mask of pure rage. "Rencia. That traitor!" he snarls. The protagonist quietly observes, sensing that Elias has a deep, personal connection with the Dark Elves. Leo then calmly continues, in any case, now that their main commander, the Lich, is gone, I believe all we need to do is defeat this mage named Rencia. Elias spins back, his expression one of utter shock. The Ghost King, he stammers. Was he truly defeated? Leo meets his gaze and confirms it with a single word, yes. A revelation that sends ripples of shock through the crowd. The protagonist turns to his companion, admitting with a humble smile, to be fair, I had some help. Letty laughs, her voice full of pride, and declares, I told you all, my friend is no ordinary goblin. A wave of excitement surges through the elven resistance fighters upon hearing this. Their murmurs turn to cheers as they proclaim their newfound belief in a real chance at freedom, vowing to show their oppressors what they are truly made of. As Liam chuckles at their spirit, Letty draws near. She asks him softly, do you truly intend to become the savior of my people? His response is firm, yes. That is precisely why I am here. He then addresses Elrond, the Elder, requesting more details about their nation's layout and forces. I need everything you know, he states. It's time to build a strategy for our resistance. Sometime later, Liam is hunched over a map of the region, his fingers tracing routes as he devises a complex plan. It isn't long before he presents his strategy. He looks up and asks, what do you think? A heavy silence falls before Elrond admits, honestly, I don't believe it will work. The Elder's voice is filled with doubt as he asks, do you truly think something so audacious is even possible? Letty's expression hardens. She steps forward, assuring the old elf with unshakable conviction. With him, nothing is impossible. Lute remarks quietly. She seems even more confident than Liam himself. Elrond's gaze becomes serious, and he declares, very well, I will put my faith in you. Our soldiers will lend you their strength, he avows. Liam meets his gaze and asks, are you certain? Elrond explains that the tyrannical elf knights respect one thing above all else, strength. They have always pledged their loyalty to the powerful. Letty beams at her friend, shouting with encouragement. You heard him. You're in charge of this entire operation. The fairy flutters nearby, observing. It seems you've finally come to an understanding. She then turns to the Elder. But can you procure a map of Lue Elf Castle for us? He nods readily. Of course. It would be my pleasure, Elrond confirms. In fact, I have already prepared weapons and medical supplies for everyone. He raises his voice, his command echoing through the camp. Listen up, prepare yourselves. The operation begins at dawn in 2 days. Once they step outside, the fairy declares her intent to discover where the occupation forces have been relocated. She will also chart the territory. Liam offers his deepest thanks for her assistance and then bids farewell to Lute. He tells his friend they will reconvene the next day, to which Lute replies that this time, their mission is to liberate the corrupt elf empire, noting that there's never a dull moment with Liam around. The protagonist smiles, remarking that he would expect nothing less from the legendary Dark Knight. With that, they exchange goodnights and part ways. As Liam walks, he reflects on his friend's sheer strength. He anticipates great achievements from his companion, Lute. Later, after settling into his bed, he detects a footstep and sees his friend, Letty. He immediately asks what she's doing there so late in the evening. Wondering if something is amiss, he listens as she asks if they might speak for a moment. Liam agrees and welcomes her in. After the two are seated on his bed, the protagonist's mind fixates on being alone with a girl, in the quiet of his room at such a late hour, and he briefly regrets allowing the fairy to go out scouting. Letty speaks his name, causing him to startle, suddenly nervous about what she is about to reveal. He asks what she needs, and she confesses there is something crucial she wanted to share with him, something he must know before the operation commences. She then discloses that the commander-in-chief of the occupying forces, Rencia, is actually a dark elf, a natural prodigy who mastered magic entirely on his own. He evolved into a truly exceptional mage, even innovating a completely new strain of dark elf magic. However, despite his profound magical gifts, he harbored even greater, more sinister ambitions. One day, disillusioned with the Empire's primitive state of magical research, he left the country. When he returned, he was at the helm of the Demon Lord's occupation army. Upon hearing this, Liam recalls the old man's deep-seated anger upon hearing the mage's name, and suddenly understands the reason for it. Liam cuts to the heart of the matter, questioning if Rencia's true goal is to seize the Empire by wielding the might of the Demon Lord's army. Letty confirms his suspicions, adding a chilling detail. Whispers already name Rencia as the designated heir to the throne of the nefarious elf empire. The revelation intrigues Lime, who murmurs that a deeper conspiracy must be unfolding. He senses a web of deceit being woven in the shadows, and suddenly, a crucial piece of the puzzle clicks into place. With dawning realization, he declares that if Rencia is truly the heir apparent, it points to only one inescapable conclusion. Letty's voice is heavy as she confirms his theory, explaining that, as the imperial princess, her fate is intrinsically tied to this plot. This political maneuver makes Rencia her fiancé. She explains that should he successfully usurp the throne, she fears she will be condemned to marry him, the very man responsible for the slaughter of her people. The shocking truth hits Lime with full force. He finally understands the desperate reason his friend was forced to abandon her home. His gaze locks onto hers for a long moment. Taking a steadying breath, he reaches out and gently takes her hand in his. The unexpected gesture leaves her bewildered. Looking her directly in the eyes, Lime assures her that she no longer needs to carry this burden alone. He makes a solemn vow. He will never allow a man like Rencia to claim her. A deep blush colors Letty's cheeks as she asks if he truly means it. His expression hardens with resolve. He answers with an unwavering yes, promising to protect her, whatever the cost. He believes that safeguarding her is the most direct path to liberating her nation from the demon lord's encroaching shadows. Tears of pure relief stream down Letty's face as she throws her arms around him, thanking him. She confesses that as a knight, she has always felt the pressure to be strong and persevere, but admits to moments when she is consumed by crippling doubt. Moments where she is simply overwhelmed by fear. With a soft, empathetic voice, Lime tells her he understands completely. He reassures her that she has endured magnificently. Overwhelmed with emotion, she grips his arm tightly, her voice barely a whisper as she speaks his name. Puzzled by her sudden intensity, he asks what's on her mind. Letty takes a breath, wanting to ask a critical question. She begins to ask what might happen if she successfully breaks her engagement to Rencia, but the words catch in her throat, leaving her flustered and silent. Then, materializing from the shadows, the fairy appears, catching them off guard, and frightening them with a grotesquely contorted face. The fairy explains that she had been preoccupied with a clandestine task under the cloak of darkness, but she makes it abundantly clear that the moment she returned, she was met with the spectacle of two lovebirds engaged in a tender moment, a sight that leaves both of them deeply embarrassed. As they wondered just how long she had been there, the fairy launches into a relentless bout of teasing. She recounts, with dramatic flair, overhearing the protagonist's solemn vow to protect his friend against all odds. She then insists that Letty had been eagerly awaiting those very words, prompting Letty to shout in protest that she never said anything of the sort. The fairy gracefully lands on the bed, declaring with a dismissive wave that it's of no concern to her, as she plans on sleeping anyway. However, she pointedly requests that they postpone such intimate moments until after their operation has achieved success. Both Lime and Letty are left completely flustered by the exchange. Meanwhile, within the foreboding walls of Lu Elf Castle, the headquarters of the occupying army, a shadowy figure sits upon the throne. His attention is consumed by a magical device, which is currently focused on the Goblin fairy. This causes the figure to sneer, commenting that it looks as if an insignificant bug is buzzing around his domain. He reflects on the gateguard's report, which mentioned a suspicious slave merchant making an appearance. This merchant had boldly claimed to have captured the imperial princess and was supposedly there to present her. But as there has been no word of her arrival, he correctly concludes that their defenses have been breached. He is now convinced the resistance will make their move at any moment, yet he remains resolute, determined to crush them for good this time. His ambition is to become the new emperor of the malevolent elf empire, and as he stares into the magical device, he concludes with chilling certainty that Letty will then belong to him. The next day, amidst a beautiful and vast garden, Letty turns in surprise as Lute Arcadia approaches, announcing that he has brought something with him. Lime expresses his gratitude to his friend, but Lute's friendly demeanor shifts to curiosity as he begins to ask a question. When questioned about the tattered clothes he had brought, Liam explained that they were essential for the coming operation. His recent victory over the Ghost King Lich had, after all, unlocked a powerful new ability, a unique skill he called Dark Synthesis. With purpose, he moved to the garden and plucked several fresh roses. Placing the blossoms upon the worn fabric, he focused his energy and swiftly invoked his new Dark Synthesis power. A stunning black dress materialized from the synthesis, leaving Letitia completely impressed by its profound beauty. Lucas was equally astonished by the skill, but Liam explained that the dress offered more than mere aesthetics. By infusing the garment with darkness, he had granted it a vastly increased level of durability. He believed it could even withstand a small explosion and announced his plan to create several more using the same method. Lucas asked if they were actually intended to be worn, and Liam confirmed with a decisive yes. He explained their destination was the Masquerade Ball, an extravagant event that was held only once a year. It served to showcase the prestige of the occupation army, and for that reason, Renard himself would be there. The reclusive man rarely left his headquarters, so they would use this opportunity to infiltrate the event. Their mission was to defeat Renard and compel him to reveal the location where Letitia's father was being held captive. The following night, figures approached the main gate of Luluf Castle, moving like shadows under the moonlight. It was Letitia, Lucas, and Liam who declared softly, "The battle begins now," as they slipped inside the grand hall. Letitia confirmed that Elrond and the others were in position, waiting for the signal to act the moment her father's location was known. Liam fastened his mask, nodding in understanding as the event proceeded around them, a calm sea of conversation and laughter. As he walked through the crowd, the protagonist scanned every masked guest, wondering if Renard was hidden somewhere in their midst. Letitia whispered her belief that he was indeed present, but noted that with so many people concealing their identities, finding him would be a challenge. She feared it would not be easy, but just as she spoke, Liam noticed an unknown woman purposefully approaching their group. Questioning the identity of the man at her side, the stranger remarks disdainfully, observing that our protagonist hardly carries the air of a distinguished soldier from the Demon Lord's army. Liam calmly presents a letter, stating that if his presence is a cause for concern, then his invitation should settle the matter, though he knows their caution runs deeper. After all, the resistance counts nobles among its members. The man, still skeptical, demands to know if the invitation is genuine. His companion adds with a sneer that commoners and low-ranking soldiers have recently attempted to infiltrate their ranks, using forged invitations. With a patronizing smile, she asks if our protagonist understands the gravity of their suspicion. She then declares her intent to administer a small test, to determine if they are truly worthy of attending the masquerade. Without warning, she switches to the elven tongue, her words dripping with contempt, as she tells him he is soiling the floor and must depart at once, all while assuming they wouldn't comprehend a single word. Letty's eyes widen as she recognizes the dialect. It's ancient Elven, a notoriously difficult language to grasp, but before she can react, Liam signals for her to wait, making it clear that he will handle this personally. He feels that such a flagrant insult deserves a fitting response. Still, he knows causing a public scene would be unwise. His goal is to quietly and decisively put them in their place. As he turns to them, the woman offers a disingenuous apology, feigning ignorance of her previous remarks. Believing him completely oblivious, the man patronizingly offers to translate his companion's insults into the more common, modern Elven. But Liam cuts him off, his voice calm yet firm, replying flawlessly in the very same ancient Elven tongue. "That will not be necessary." He continues, his words a sharp rebuke. "Were you not just insulting us, under the convenient assumption that we were too ignorant to comprehend?" A wave of crimson washes over the woman's face, her arrogance crumbling into stunned disbelief that he is fluent in the ancient language. Liam presses his advantage, his tone unwavering, stating that, in fact, his own proficiency in ancient Elvish far surpasses their own. He then adds, as a final, crushing blow to their pride, that he is also fluent in each of the roughly 30 regional dialects spoken across the entire empire, and from the particular cadence of her speech, he instantly identifies her as hailing from the southernmost reaches of Corone. He then coolly inquires if his assessment is mistaken, before adding that the man must be a noble from outside the imperial capital, which would account for his provincial, yet pretentious, dialect. The woman is left utterly flabbergasted, scarcely believing what she is hearing, but Liam continues, asking if she would indulge him for a moment longer. He'd like to propose that a noble's true value isn't derived from their lineage or the expanse of their domain, but from their personal conduct, concluding that if she cannot grasp this simple truth, she should remove herself from his path and his sight. The woman's face contorts with rage, as does the man's, who immediately rests his hand upon the hilt of his blade, on his sword, and calls the protagonist insolent. But Luke appears, halting his hand before he can draw the weapon, and unleashing his formidable aura, he sends a silent, powerful message to stand down while he still has the chance, and to avoid escalating the situation. Struck with sudden terror, the man and his companion make a hasty retreat, vowing that they will remember this encounter. Liam lets out a quiet sigh, relieved that his bluff was successful. But Letty approaches him, her eyes filled with curiosity, and asks how he is fluent in the ancient Elven language, when even within the imperial family, there isn't a single elf who fully grasps it. The protagonist offers a mischievous wink and confesses that he may have cheated slightly. He then clarifies that he had employed a goblin summoning spell just moments before the confrontation, secretly whispering the incantation for a scholar goblin, a creature he was aware possessed unique abilities. He explains that they are a subspecies of goblin that experienced a sudden mutation, And while goblins are generally of low intelligence, that particular species can interpret and articulate nearly every language spoken across the demon continent. He elaborates that the scholar goblin then directly implanted this vast linguistic knowledge into his brain, and as a direct result, he was instantaneously granted fluency in the ancient and forgotten language, which provided him the perfect intellectual weapon to dismantle the arrogant noble with his newfound linguistic skill. Letty declares his actions were worse than mere cheating, but her train of thought is broken by a sudden noise, causing her to turn abruptly. A group of elven girls excitedly converges on our hero, confessing with sparkling eyes that they had been captivated by his words the entire time. They earnestly plead with him, hoping he won't judge the spirit of the entire masquerade based on the behavior of those two individuals. They go on to explain that despite their high social status, the pair are notoriously arrogant and have a reputation for always stirring up trouble. In a hushed, conspiratorial tone, they assure him that it's a shared sentiment everyone else secretly detests them, and because of the masterful way he handled the situation, they have all become his most ardent fans, a declaration that makes Lime incredibly flustered. The girls eagerly ask for their names, and our protagonist smoothly introduces himself to his newfound admirers. Lute's introduction follows, and the elven girls swoon collectively, whispering how even their names possess a certain magic. They soon surround the two of them, a sea of hopeful faces, all expressing their deepest wish to be granted a dance. Watching from a distance, a storm of jealousy brews within Letty. She quietly confides in the fairy that she was the one who gave her friend his name. The name Lime was her creation, she insists. But the fairy only responds with a light, tinkling laugh. The creature then playfully challenges her, asking what she plans to do about it, just as a commanding presence begins to descend the main staircase. Letty's eyes widen in an instant. She recognizes the figure as Rencia, and a palpable fear grips her. Our hero notices the arrival as well, his expression shifting to one of intense focus as he thinks they may have finally located their target.